Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Friday, January 18th, 2019. It's 4:34 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. I have USGS pulled up here. We're going to cover earthquakes in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you this Arctic region that we're looking at with methane, and so you have an orientation when we talk about earthquakes and then the methane, and going back and forth and seeing the methane release from Copernicus. You'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about. So here we have, this is Russia, Siberia up here, Russia, Asia is down here, Europe is over here, here's Norway, here's Novaya Zemlya, and here's some various islands in the Arctic Ocean. Here's Greenland. Over here are Canadian islands and Canada and Alaska. So what we've been looking at on cams, focusing on, is this methane release that's coming up in the Barents Sea and the Kara Sea right here on both sides of Novaya Zemlya, and then spreading out across the Arctic, across the North Pole. And it's also coming up over here out of the Laptev Sea, and we can see that this fault line runs right through the Laptev Sea, and this is the fault line between the North American plate and the Eurasian plate. Hold on. Okay, I just wanted to check that real quick. That's exactly right. The North American plate North America is over it, and then here it comes across the Pacific and comes around, and Greenland is on this North American plate. Then the Eurasia plate cuts right through Iceland. We've seen that, and then it comes around down here and includes Europe and Asia, and then it cuts through part of Russia, and it goes right up through the top, through where the North Pole is. So I think that, the methane release that we've been seeing has to do with these plates shifting and moving, in addition to the Earth warming up from the inside out for whatever reason, and so the ground is not as cold as it should be or normally is in the winter time. We've seen permafrost melting, as we saw in the article yesterday, and waves and waves of methane just being released from the surface here, also from India and from China and Asia over here, also from the United States, from about the middle point over to the east, also throughout Europe and the Sweden nations and the UK, and through parts of Africa, right, especially through the Congo and through the middle part of South America, and those are and down through the South Pacific areas. Those are the areas that we've been seeing huge releases of methane, but we've been focusing specifically the last few days on this Arctic release because it is winter time up there. This area is in the dark, and there is sea ice covering a lot of this area. So, no one understands why it's being released, but at this time of year especially, it is concerning to a lot of people. But I just wanted to show you that so you have more of an idea of where these fault lines are, and that this is a very serious situation. So let's get right to methane. And we left off yesterday. We had I started with Monday because that was an overlap day, and then the new day of data was Tuesday yesterday, and today we have 2 new days of data. We have Wednesday and Thursday. So I've loaded up the movie for Wednesday, and I've chosen the Arctic view and the surface level, and so I've already loaded it up. So let's run this movie. So the first day is actual data, and then it goes into the forecast period. So but we're also going to load up Thursday in a minute. But I wanted you to see where we left off from our show on yesterday after Tuesday. Okay, so what we can see here, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning of Wednesday. We had a big release that came and spread out. It was red across the Arctic here, and so now that's kind of dissipated into orange, and there was a release coming up through the Laptev Sea over here, and also we were seeing that right above Greenland it started releasing some kind of yellow-orange level of methane as well, and it's yellow-orange down here by Svalbard too. But so what we see here is we've got red coming up in the Kara Sea to the east of Novaya Zemlya, and then we have this huge wave being released in Siberia. We're going to see that go across, and if you choose on the you can choose these different ones. If you choose on the North Pole view, you'll get the whole northern hemisphere, but I wanted to focus on the Arctic here. So let's run this again now that we've got our bearings. Okay, so watch this release here coming up. So now it's into the forecast period, and so now we see another wave coming up. So it does come up in waves and dissipates, and then we've got a new wave coming up out of Sweden and Finland right there. So it does release in waves, and then it builds and releases and builds and releases, it looks like to me. And so that forecast period went through Sunday. So I have now here on this next tab the base time for Thursday pulled up in the Arctic, and I've already loaded this movie. So where we're starting is on Thursday, and we're seeing that release coming up in Russia or northern Siberia, and a big dark area coming up directly to the east of Novaya Zemlya. So let's load this up again. And so this is the actual data for Thursday, and then it goes into the forecast period. And so we're seeing a new release now here look at that. There was a burst. It's like bursting up. It almost looks to me like it's just like bursting up through the surface as we're getting more into the forecast period. Watch here. See it? And these are in, the data comes in 3-hour increments. So when you see it jump from one thing to the next, that's from a picture that's a 3-hour gap. So it's gonna kind of have to read between the lines, but it almost looks like it's bursting through the water here in this forecast period. So see the release coming up. Now see these dark bursts coming up. I don't know any other way to say it. That's just what it looks like to me. And we still have stuff coming up out of the Laptev Sea and the East Siberia Sea. And here's the North Pole right here. And think about that red line. It runs right through Iceland and comes right across and cuts right through Russia here. So it doesn't go, I don't think it goes right exactly across the North Pole. I think it goes a little bit to the side of it. I'm not for sure on that. But see this big wave, and then it dissipates, and then it builds. So I will keep bringing this methane data to you as it becomes available. And you know, sometimes CAMS gets behind on posting their data, so some days we won't have any new methane data, so that's okay. We will show it as it comes in. So I'm going to pause that. So that's where we're at with methane. Now I want to go to the comments, and first I want to cover Robin's comments. His YouTube name is Seymour Rocks 97. This was he left the same comment under a couple of my videos. He said, I've spent a morning putting this together and distilling useful information from Margo. And if you click on this link, it's a blog that he put up, and he did this from the video I did a couple of days ago about methane and earthquakes, and from a couple of days ago where I showed the sea surface temperature up in the Arctic so warm. And so he put together this very good blog post. What is all that methane in the Arctic Ocean? And so then he did his own short video just showing the methane levels again. Then he talked about salt water freezing, and there's a discussion here, and if you read it, you'll realize that that there are different degrees of salinity, and we talked about this yesterday. And so so he says pure water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, while a salt solution might not freeze until it reaches -6 degrees or -21 degrees. And we've seen, and that's because salt disrupts the movement of molecules entering and leaving the solid. So then But we've also seen that it can start freezing at 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about -2 degrees Celsius, depending on the amount of salinity in fresh water. And so I talked about this yesterday, and so he just put it in his blog, and so it makes it brings it to a different level where you're able to read it too. And he put the this is the Navy image for the sea ice concentration here, and this is from National Snow and Ice Data Center, and then this is from Earth Null School, where I showed the different temperatures of the Arctic Ocean and showing why it's not freezing up there and so forth. So I thought it was a really good compilation of data put together to explain why there's methane coming up and why the sea ice that we have is not very good sea ice, and then this area to the east in the Arctic is not free freezing. So if you want to read about it, you can read about it here. And then he referenced another website. Where was it? And then he talked about the melting permafrost, and then here's a video on Earth's magnetic fields moving. So I think it all plays in together. I like to look at things from a holistic viewpoint and not just cover one thing or the other, because you know it's a lot of different factors going on here. So that's a good blog post. I have another bit of news. You remember the show I did? I did 2 shows about the 2.5 magnitude earthquake that happened at the Oroville Dam back in December as a result of what was labeled a chemical explosion. So I got a bunch of flack about that, but for whatever reason, I'm following the Oroville Facebook page, and so I'm up on all their latest news now. And so here is a news bulletin from the Oroville News Live, and it says, on Tuesday, January 22nd, they will be blasting again at the Oroville Dam, and the road will be closed from 3:45 to 4:05 p.m. on Tuesday, January 22nd. So that's going to be next week. So here we are on the 18th. So next Tuesday, they're going to be blasting, and it says the short blasting is part of the work around the main spillway to improve hillside safety. The blasting will be similar to those completed in the past several weeks, so we anticipate similar noise levels locally. Please be aware there will be more construction blasting in the coming weeks that will require road closures. We apologize for any inconvenience and will notify you if there are any changes. Thanks for your continued patience. So, and then they have alternate routes and all that. So, we'll be looking to see how big of an earthquake that creates. So let's go back to our comments. I just wanted to share that little tidbit of news. We'll be following They're chemical, and their explosions are listed as chemical explosions, or they're blasting. Okay, now going to comments. This was starting with my video from yesterday. Marcia Noren says at 21 minutes 45 seconds in, you are so right that collapsing permafrost crater is scary looking. I wouldn't want to be there either. Thanks for all you do to keep us informed. Yeah, Marcia, that was something else. It was called the Crater from Hell or something like that, and that's what it looked like. It was awful looking. You could see that nothing could grow there, so that's as a result of the permafrost collapsing in on itself. So thanks for your comment, and thanks for being there. I appreciate it. Then the next comment that came in was from Crypt Zombie. I don't think I've heard from Crypt Zombie before. He says, fantastic content, Margo. Very much appreciated. Are you in agreement with Dr. Guy McPherson that we will have an ice-free Arctic within the next 2 to 3 years, and therefore doomed within 10 years? He pointed out that ice-free can mean that less than 1 million square kilometers of ice can remain since they're scattered. If I recall correctly, he also mentioned that there are currently about 5 million square kilometers of ice remaining in the Arctic. Is it realistic to go from 5 million to less than 1 million square kilometers of ice within just a couple of years? I understand melting permafrost, methane bombs, and self-reinforcing feedback loops, but that time frame just sounds unrealistic to me. Thanks, Margo. Much appreciated. Well, thank you for tuning in, Crypt Zombie, and for your comment. The one to follow about the amount of square kilometers of sea ice is Zach Labe, L-A-B-E, and he posts on Twitter all the time, and he has measurements. He shows measurements and graphs of where we're at with the actual square kilometers of sea ice is up there. I know we're at the minimum that we've ever had, and the same with the Antarctic. And I think that you Guy McPherson had said that we would have an ice-free Arctic plus or minus 3 years from 2016 from this peer-reviewed paper that he had read. That's the thing he always talks about. And so 2019 will be the plus 3 years. We've gone through the minus 3 years. So I don't know where you got your data from, but you know, you always want to be looking for his latest things that he's talking about, because sometimes these videos get put up and then people make copies of the videos and you don't know exactly when that information is from, so it's hard to tell. And I also say, and I've been saying ever since I started doing these videos, that we need to look at all the signs, not just the ice-free Arctic, as for things falling apart. For instance, we're already seeing the jet stream fall apart, and we're also already seeing the chaotic weather and lots of different feedback loops that are showing up even without having a totally ice-free Arctic. And because the ice was so thin, I'm thinking that, you know, we could be having the effects of what would be considered a virtual ice-free Arctic. Just because the ice was so thin, it's not doing what it should be able to do. So those are just my thoughts. But thank you for tuning in and your comment. Tom Donaldson says, "You're the greatest, Margo, and don't you forget it." Oh, thank you, Tom. We're all very much obliged for your concern with these changing details concerning methane and CO2 and all greenhouse gases amassing in the atmosphere. Bless you always for being there for us as we struggle to get positioned for what surely is coming down the road of life. This on the 25th year in SoCal since the Northridge earthquake. Yeah, and I didn't realize that yesterday was the anniversary for that. That was a 6.7 earthquake that happened in the Los Angeles area. So, and it caused a lot of damage because it was in such a populated area. And so when we look at these earthquakes and we see these 6 and 7s happening around the world, you know, it's just amazing to me that more damage is not being done. But, you know, so far a lot of them have been in areas that are not very populated, like in a mountainous region in South America or out in the ocean or something like that. So, but it's building and we're getting more and more. Well, thank you, Tom, for your nice comment and for being there, and God bless you too. And thanks for tuning in. Then Graziano Fuma says, yes, it is realistic. We lost 30% of Antarctic ice in the last 4 years. Also remember the ice thickness is almost gone, and consider the exponential effects. In my humble opinion, we will be Arctic free this summer. Thank you, Graziano Fuma. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. But like I said, we want to look at the whole picture. We want to have a holistic view and not have a little myopic view and just focusing on, oh, are we there yet with the sea ice? Because, you know, so many other things can go wrong, and so many other things. The dominoes can start falling even while we still have sea ice. So we need to be prepared way before that happens. And I'm talking about getting prepared spiritually. So the next comment is from Omega Man. He says it's coming out of the Laptev Sea, so that's triggered. It will soon be dark red. The icing on the cake, melting tundra releases mercury. Look that up. I know, Omega Man, and thank you for being here and commenting. And yeah, I think it will be dark red from the Laptev Sea soon. And I've read articles about the mercury being released. I don't know if I've read them on my YouTube channel or not, but I did a search, and I just put in melting, misspelled melting, melting permafrost releasing mercury. And here's all these lists and lists of websites talking about, and this is just page 1. I mean, there are pages and pages of this, and this is the new thing that people are talking about now. So if we look at this one, this article, I think I have it pulled up over here. Nope, that's a different one. Let me show you this one. Mercury from thawing permafrost ending up in Arctic waterways from December 14th, 2018. Now this is a good article. This is from cbcnews.ca, which is Canada. Scientists found so much the metal they wondered if their math was off. Look at that picture. This is where this was a collapse that happened near Fort McPherson in the Northwest Territory. It's called a permafrost slump, and that's where there was a lot of ice in the permafrost that melted, And so the ground collapsed, and they call it a slump, and then it starts flowing down and just like taking over the landscape. And it says, as permafrost in the north thaws, it's releasing record levels of mercury into Arctic rivers and waterways. The study, published by the journal Environmental Science and Technology on November 26th, found that landslides caused by the rapidly thawing permafrost, also called thaw slumps, in Canada's Peel Plateau, deposit large amounts of mercury into rivers and streams. I think I reported on this, I can't remember. Anyway, you can read the link, but mercury is a toxic heavy metal, and it causes problems to the nervous system. And so if that gets released into the water and into the soil and into the air, I mean, you talk about having brain fog. In addition to that, you'll just, it basically just messes up your whole nervous system. So then here's another one. It's the same title. It's from February 7th. And it's just a different picture. And see what these different websites do. They take the original article and just repost it, just written up a little bit differently. And it says, newly discovered mercury stores in permafrost are the largest known on the planet. They store nearly twice as much mercury as all other soils, the ocean, and the atmosphere combined. They are 10 times greater than all the mercury humans have pumped into the atmosphere from coal burning and other pollution sources over the last 30 years. So they don't know what to think about it, but they know that we're in trouble. So that's another self-reinforcing feedback loop. So there's that. So, just do your own search and just pick an article and you'll have it. Thank you, Omega Man, for a heads up on that. And thank you for being here in your comment. And I'm going to come back to Troy's comment. Then up here, Darren Koppel says, thanks, Margo. I'm keeping saved methane surface global pictures as well. Good idea. Good idea. And then you can refer back to them and see how things have changed. And then I'd like to share this comment from Troy Turton. He left it under my prepping video on how to make a fire. I was going to do a series of prepping videos and I got sidetracked. I did one, is how to make a fire. And but a lot of prepping is just common sense and just being self-reliant. And I think if you grew up like on a farm or with parents or grandparents who had self-reliant skills, then you're going to be more likely to be self-reliant than trying to just start out from the beginning if you've never done it. Anyway, he says, we were off the grid for 7.5 days because of Hurricane Sandy here in New Jersey. Thankfully, I had all my camping skills I learned from my dad, because my sister was afraid to light the electric starting gas stove with a match the old-fashioned way, so we had to cook everything on my little grill outside, even the morning coffee, which was, of course, instant coffee, blah. But better than nothing. Sandy, of course, supplied us with plenty of firewood, though kind of mostly green. There were quite a few large dead branches that came down too. Yeah, Troy, and so you had skills from camping, and that's one thing that's good about going camping. You get to practice your survival skills, and we may have to use some of these skills for a while, especially if the grid goes down, and it very well could. I mean, it probably will go down at one point or another. I mean, what we're talking about, the end of the collapse of the modern world and society and everything, and so it just depends on where you are and what your situation is, and if you're able to survive, or if you want to survive. I mean, if you want to survive, there are certain things you need to do in order to get ready to survive. And if you don't want to survive, you can not prepare. You can let the end come sooner for you. So it's up to each individual. I used to prep a lot, but once I learned about abrupt climate change, I don't really prep. I'm able to get through. If my electricity goes out here like overnight, I can do that, but I'm not equipped to live off the grid or to live on the land and grow my own food and any of that. I am not equipped to do that, and I don't really care. I just soon go, the sooner the better, frankly. But everybody's different, so thank you for sharing that, Troy, and it sounds like you have a lot of good instincts and good survival skills. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. And there are things that you can do that are easy and not very expensive, and ways that you can survive if you want to. And it might be a short-term thing, like where the electricity just goes out for a few days, then it's worth it. But if it's the end, I don't know. It's everybody has to decide for themselves. So now let's get right into our earthquake report. We've got some earthquakes that are going to be falling off the map in a couple of minutes here. It's been active. It's been really active, I have to tell you. And so I have USGS all magnitudes for the last 24 hours pulled up. We have 254 earthquakes, and now going to the 2.5 magnitude map for the last 24 hours. I'm going to start with these that are about to fall off the map that I did not report on. These came on after I ended the show yesterday. And sometimes they'll put them on hours later than when they really happened. So, for whatever reason. Okay, here was a 4.3 up here in Kiemo, China. This happened yesterday at 5:14 Pacific time. It was 10 kilometers deep. That's the only one that's going to come off the map in the next few minutes. So let's just start over there since that's where we're at. So here was the 4.3, and here's another one. It was right on the border between China and Mongolia, which is actually part of China. It was a 4.4, and it was 21 kilometers deep. It happened at 10:11 this morning. Here's one in Kyrgyzstan. Actually, it looks like it was almost on the border between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. It was a 4.5 that happened last night at 8:05 p.m., 10 kilometers deep. And by the way, I the time I'm saying is Pacific time. All of these times I've got it to local, so Pacific time, so I know what time it is. Here we had a 4.5 in the Arabian Sea, right at the Owen fraction zone region, 10 kilometers deep at 12:37 this morning, right off the coast of Saudi Arabia here, or Oman, right on a red line. Here we had one up in Greece, well, in the Mediterranean Sea to the west of Greece. It was a 4.5 that happened at Latakia, Greece, 21 kilometers deep at 9:14 this morning, right next to this red line. And while we're over here, USGS does not report on these that happen over here in the Canary Islands, but we did have a 4.2 happen in the Canary Islands. If you look, that map is not looking right. Let's reload that. There it goes. If you look over here, that red dot there, that was a 4.2 that happened in the Canary Islands at 6:36 UTC time, so that would have been 10:36 Pacific time last night. And let's see how deep that was. Let's see, and then we can see the list down here, and you know, this is from EMSC, and they list a whole bunch of earthquakes that USGS doesn't list. So trying to find it. Hang on. Okay, so I just clicked on the dot and it came to this picture, and it was a 4.2 Canary Islands, Spain region. It happened at I told you 6:36 UTC. It was 37 kilometers deep. And if people are not aware that Canary Islands region, it's a compilation of 7 islands, and they're all volcanic. And there's been talk about one of the volcanoes blowing there and creating a tsunami so big that it would cover up the whole eastern seaboard of the United States and inundate England and Europe and all this stuff. So, you know, there's been talk of that. I don't know if that's not going to happen with one 4.2 earthquake, but I don't see other earthquakes happening there right now. So that's all that's right there. So let's go back, and we can see that that was not reported on USGS, but the Canary, we can see where the Canary Islands are right in here. There are 7 right here off the west coast of northern Africa, and so there's that. So you can do your own research and look up the Canary Islands, and you can find out for yourself what's going on. So, okay, we covered all of those. Now let's come down to the South Pacific. And there was a 4.4 near Kurapan, Indonesia. Looks like it was off the coast of Sumatra. 35 kilometers deep. It happened last night at 9:34 p.m. Here's another one of 4.4 near Napongi, Indonesia. Today at 2:09 p.m., 115 kilometers deep. Now, remember the Lombok area? Lombok is right here where David Alcock thinks that things could blow up. This is a highly active area. They've got a volcano there that blows and causes a lot of problems. So there's that one. Now let's come across. Here's more than one. We have two right here next to this red line. There was a 4.8 near Tuvalu, Indonesia at 7:38 this morning, 74 kilometers deep. And then there was a 5.2 right next to it that was 47 kilometers deep at 10:52 this morning. Then coming on down to Papua New Guinea, there was one right here on the coastline, well, right out in the ocean. It was a 4.9 that happened near Madang, Papua New Guinea at 10:26 this morning. It was 59 kilometers deep. And we can see that red line goes right across next to that. Then right down here we had a 6.0 near Isengel, Vanuatu that happened at 5:18 this morning, 45 kilometers deep. It was in the ocean. It was next to these little islands, but with it being in the ocean, it probably didn't do any damage. We're not seeing the wave for tsunami warning. Then right down here there was one right on the northern coast of New Zealand, on that North Island. It was a 4.6 that happened near Opotiki, New Zealand at 8:59 this morning, 155 kilometers deep. And remember, I recently did a couple of shows about New Zealand and the methane stores over here off the east coast, and this fault line goes right down here and cuts across the bottom island. So that's an area we need to keep an eye on. So now let's keep coming around the Ring of Fire. There was one on land in Japan of 5.0 near Sawara, Japan that happened at 4:46 this morning. It was 47 kilometers deep. I don't know if that caused any damage or not. I haven't heard. But, you know, Japan hardens things pretty well against earthquakes. But you never know. Then there was one right up here to the north of the mainland. It was a 5.2 near Hachinohe, Japan at 12:04 this afternoon, 47 kilometers deep. See, that's right near that red line. Then, moving on up, here's another one near these Kuril Islands. This is part of Russia, near Vostok, Russia. It was a 4.4 that happened at 11:29 this morning. It was 114 kilometers deep, so that's deeper. Then I'm going to come across over here in Chile. There was a 4.5 near Ovalle, Chile at 7:02 this morning that was 69 kilometers deep. Then up here in Peru was a 5.6 near Barranca, Peru that happened this afternoon at 1:26 p.m., 99 kilometers deep. That's big enough that it could do damage if it was in a populated area. It doesn't look like it's near any towns right off the bat. The closest town, it looks like it's between Tamba and Puesto Bagazan. Looks like it's between those. So there's that. Then we had these two earthquakes show up right on this red line on the East Pacific Rise, northern East Pacific Rise. We had a 6.0 that happened at 8:40 this morning, 10 kilometers deep. And then about half an hour later, there was a 4.8 in the same place, 10 kilometers deep. That one happened at 9:08. And so what we can see is this is on the eastern side of that Pacific plate, directly opposite this big 6.0 that happened on the west side. This west side one happened at 5:18. This one happened at 8:40. So a little over 3 hours later. And so, you know, with these earthquakes getting bigger in magnitude, the plates are moving, and it's going to affect the other plates, and the magma's going to be moving too. So there's that. Also of concern is the San Andreas fault line comes right down here and through California and through Baja, through the Gulf of California, and then you can extend that right down here on this Pacific plate. So this will cause movement for everything up and down. So there's that. Now let's go to the Dominican Republic. We're showing 8 earthquakes here. 2.5 magnitude or higher. I'll just click them and call them off. 2.5, 3.1, Vieques, Puerto Rico. 3.1, Hatillo, Puerto Rico. 3.0, San Antonio, Puerto Rico. 2.8, 3.0, Charlotte, Amalie, U.S. Virgin Islands. 2.7 and 2.6. Let's see all magnitudes. So that was 8. Now if we zoom into all magnitudes down there, there was one smaller one that was a 1.8. So there's that. Now let's go up to Hawaii next, and we can see 6 here on the mainland. 2.0, 2.1, 1.7, 2.2, 0.9, and 2.3. All right there on the mainland, and they're moving around. Now let's go up to Alaska. And we're going to start with the 2.5 magnitude and higher. Here's a 3.2 near False Pass, Alaska, 23 kilometers deep. This is part of the Aleutian Island. These are the Aleutian Islands. This is a volcanic chain of islands that go around. Here's a 2.7 near Chirikov Island, 67 kilometers deep. Here's one 2.9 near King Salmon, Alaska, 181 kilometers deep. We can see that was on the land on this, it's called the Alaska Peninsula, right there. That's not big enough to cause damage, but it's showing movement. Here's one in this Cook Inlet, a 3.1 near Anchor Point, 75 kilometers deep. Then here's a 2.5 near Healy, 0.1 kilometers deep. Then up in the northern part was 3.3 near Arctic Village, 0 kilometers deep. Now let's go to all magnitudes for Alaska. So we saw this 3.2. There was also a 2.4 near Unalaska, 41 kilometers deep. That's all in the Aleutian Islands. Then there were some smaller ones, a lot of smaller ones around. Let's see if we can get Alaska in the viewing area. We're showing 85 on the map here for all magnitudes for Alaska. So we just had a few that were 2.5 magnitude and higher, and so we can see we've got lots and lots of the smaller ones, ones and under, or between ones and twos. So that's a bunch. But this is an active region, and they average between 50 and 100 earthquakes a day. Now, they're still clustering here in this Anchorage area, as we've seen. But we can see them. It's like more going along those lines there. Now let's come down to the United States, and we'll finish up this report. Let's start down here in Snyder, Texas. There was a 2.8 at 2:20 this morning, 5 kilometers deep. Snyder is oil drilling country. That could have been from that. There was a 2.8 near Minco, Oklahoma at 7:17 this morning, 5 kilometers deep. And a 2.4 near Medford, Oklahoma at 2:07 this afternoon, 5 kilometers deep. That could be from drilling. I just don't know. Now let's go up to the northwest, Pacific Northwest. I don't want Yellowstone on here. We have 6 showing on the map. I'll just click them and call them off. A 1.8. We can see that's to the west of Seattle near Low Fall, 19 kilometers deep. 1.8 near Desert Air. 1.1 near Packwood. These are all in Washington. 1.5 near Darrington. Here's an explosion. that registered a 1.5 near Castle Rock that happened at 11:35 this morning. It was a minus 0.6 kilometer in depth, meaning it was up on the hillside or in the mountain, so they were doing some blasting. And a 1.0 near Estacada, Oregon. Now let's go over to Yellowstone area. We're showing 7 on the map here today. First, I'm going to start with this little diamond, which is a quarry blast. It's a 1.7 magnitude earthquake that was caused from that quarry blast near Butte, Montana. Happened at 12 o'clock this afternoon. Minus 2 kilometers deep. So it was up in the mountain or on the mountain. Here's a 1.8 near Choteau, Montana. 0.6 near Lima. Minus 0.1 near West Yellowstone. That's a microquake. And 1.1 near Old Faithful. 2.1 near Wilson, Wyoming, and a 2.2 near Soda Springs, Idaho. So the larger ones were down here, and this is part of that Yellowstone caldera area. Now let's do Utah. We had a 1.8 near Beaver, Utah. And then we've got, look at this stack here at Enterprise. 9. There were 9 here at Enterprise, Utah. Ranging from a 1.3, the largest one was a 2.4. Dutch Sense has talked about this area. I can't remember what he said, but he has mentioned this area. I don't know if there's a lot of drilling or there's something going on there causing all those earthquakes that is man-made. I think it's drilling. I'll have to watch one of his videos again real soon and see. Now let's come up through Nevada while we're down here. 1.6 over by the Utah border, and then we've got a 0 at Pahrump, 0.1, minus 0.3. So these are small down here in the near the Nevada test site. It's, did we get this one? 2.7 near McGill, Nevada. That's good size. Not sure what's over there. Then 1.3 near Hawthorne, 1.3 near Bridgeport. Nothing in the Reno, Carson City area. Did I get this? Yeah. Alright, up here was a 2.2 near Chester. Now here's Chico, and then remember Oroville. Here's Oroville and the Oroville Dam. So they're going. This is where they're going to be blasting on Tuesday. They're going to be blasting on this hillside to fix the rocks. So they're not done yet. They got the spillway rebuilt, but they're not done with all the infrastructure around it. But it's been snowing and raining, and I don't know how they're going to get anything done with all of that. Squaw Valley got, what, 6 feet of snow in the last 48 hours. That's one of the ski resorts up here in the Sierra Nevadas, up west of Reno. And so, well, speaking of that, while I'm over here, so here, these are the Sierra Nevada mountains, and so we've had this snow piling up and coming down and everything, and so what they're going to have to worry about with so much snow cover is if it warms up too fast, the snow will melt and it will come down and fill up that Oroville Lake, and then they've got problems. Then they have to open the spillway and this and that. But also, if it rains, it'll melt that snow too fast. So it's a balancing act. So we saw the geysers, 4 small ones over here. The largest one was a 2.1. Okay, nothing in the San Francisco area to report on today. Coming down, the San Andreas fault line is a 1.4 at the Pinnacles, a 0.8 near San Ardo. Here's another explosion, or quarry blast, a 1.0 near Mojave. It was a -1 kilometer depth, meaning it's up in the mountain or on a hillside. Now let's get these others coming down on this right hand side. This is the Mammoth Lake area. There are 21. We're seeing 21. I'm going to try and get those off. Okay, so 20 here, from here, including these down here. Okay, I'll just call off the ones above 2. Here's a 2.6 near Round Valley. That was 10 kilometers deep. Here's a 2.1 near Tom's Place. That's near Mammoth Lakes. And so all the others were 1s and under. But there were 20 of them. So the number of them has picked up. And we can see the swarm down here in Long Valley, near Mammoth Lakes. Did we get Mono Lake? Nothing up at Mono Lake today. Now let's go on down. .7, 1.2 at Coso Junction, 0.6 Little Lake, 0.4 and 0.6 all at Little Lake. So there's our quarry blast. Now coming on down into the Los Angeles and Southern California area. Got a lot going on down here today. We've got 73 on the map. Doesn't look like it, but they're stacked up. They're stacked up mainly over here near Kauai, but right over here on the southern end of this Salton Sea, we had a massive amount. Look at that. That's 37 earthquakes right there. And this is right near that San Andreas fault line. So this is concerning. This is definitely concerning. I'll call them off if they're 2.0 and above. Here's a 2.0. And this is called Calipatria, California. Here's a 2.4, same place. 2.5, 2.2, 2.2, 3.4. That's the highest one, I think. So that's getting up there. That happened at night, 12:19 this morning. 2.1. Here's a 2.4. And all the others were under 2. 37 earthquakes right there. Then here's one right there in the middle of the Salton Sea, a 1.1. But this red line is that San Andreas fault line. And it comes down and then it picks back up. The line part picks back up here. So we can see that those are right near that line. Okay, and then here's some in right here on the border, 1.7, 1.5, and so forth. Let's see how many were at Kauai today. In the Kauai area there were 24 right here, and then a couple around. These are 1s and under, like up to 1.5. But that area right down here to the south of the Salton Sea is very concerning. Very concerning. And remember, we saw a couple right down here in the Gulf of California the last few days. So that's an extension of that San Andreas fault line. And then it comes right on down here to these two that happened. The 6.0 and then the 4.8. So we've had a long show again today. It just seems like by the time I get done showing everything and sharing an article or two, it just takes this amount of time. But it's easier for me to do one long video than a bunch of short videos, because then I have to process them and upload them and all of that. So let's see if anything has come in since I got started. We saw this one in Indonesia, this 4.4. We saw the 2.7 at McGill, Nevada. Okay, we saw all of that. So I think that's it. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. And I think time is short. I do believe we are in the end times. And I believe that everyone needs to get your spiritual house in order. Be ready to leave ASAP. So until next time, my name is Margo. I love you all very much. Oh, by the way, tomorrow is the eclipse, tomorrow night, and it's at its height at 12:16 a.m. on Saturday night into Sunday morning, Eastern time. But it starts like an hour and a half before that. And it's going to be seen North America, Central, and South America. We'll be able to see it if we don't have bad weather. So, I love you all very much. God bless. Go in peace, and goodbye.